Hi guys, Adam McCubbin here. Super excited to share with you this episode today. I hope you get out as much information as I did doing this interview. A lot of preparation, effort, and work goes into each episode, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and subscribe to this episode. Plus, if you want to leave a comment below or ask any questions, I'd be more than happy to get back to you. Just a quick announcement, this show is now brought to you by MyProtein. MyProtein is an online company that sells supplements, training apparel, and equipment. It's a company that I've used for several years and highly recommend their products. I'll put a link to the website below, plus a 25% discount code if you'd like to purchase products from there. And without further ado, here's the episode. Okay, today we have Jason Stacy on the podcast. Jason is a strength and conditioning coach with a varied background in the clinical setting, also working with tennis players at the elite level, and also has a bit of a martial arts background. So welcome, Jason, to the podcast today.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you here. Finally, we got to get you on the line. I've been trying for a little while. We've had a few issues, technical difficulties, and now our calendars not aligning.
That's all right. Things happen, but we got here. We're here.
That's the main thing. So, for those listeners that might not have heard of you before, could you just give us just a sort of brief history, a rundown of your coaching career? And I guess how you started.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. I've been in the allied health and / strength conditioning fitness industries for, I guess it'll be over 20 years now. I'm much older than I look. How did I start? I mean, I suppose I've always been involved in fitness and coaching on some level. Even when I was a teenager, I was teaching fitness classes and self-defense classes, like in Aikijitsu and Jiu-Jitsu classes, which had a very fitness sort of focused. And then later on down the road, I became a qualified professional in that was about 20 years ago. And I initially started as a personal trainer and a sports therapist, like a sports massage therapist, and eventually just kept studying and became an athletic trainer certified, which is like in the US, guys will know the ATCs. So we do it's like a sport physio, but we work just with athletes, and we do all like emergency care on field, as well as all the rehab behind the scenes, that whole sort of bridging the gap between injury and getting back to playing. And then we do the emergency care as well. And during that process, I became a strength coach. And nowadays, I guess people call me a performance coach is the key words these days, I think is what people call us. Yeah. So we do a little bit of everything. And I've worked in a lot of environments, from hospital inpatient care to medical doctor in the clinics working with MVA patients, motor vehicle accidents. Yeah. Spent my first couple of years working with AIDS and HIV patients in the 90s. Both from a fitness aspect as well as a massage side of things. And then, I worked with a number of teams, Olympic development teams in soccer, gymnastics, judo, swimming. I've spent 10 plus years on the pro tennis tour, traveling the world like 40 plus weeks a year. Worked in high schools, University of Washington. I did some hours over there for my ATC hours back in the old days. I don't know. I always forget. I've done a lot of different things. Worked with combat athletes, lots of youth athletes, just a little bit of everything all over the place, from the developmental side all the way to the elite level. And I've had athletes who have qualified for Olympics and even won a few medals in a couple of sports, which always kind of it's kind of nice being part of that journey. So I've always sort of spent most of my career, even in the early days, sort of bridging that gap between sort of the rehab and the over sort of analyzing things and the just coach and just kind of go hard and don't worry about the rest. And so from performance and rehab, so bridging that gap between the two. It's probably where I spent most of my time, most of my career, seeming to be sort of in that hole. I know nowadays it's a bit more popular, but back in the old days it wasn't really a normal thing.
What was your initial qualifications that sort of got you in? Obviously, it sounded like you got into the rehab side first. What did you do? What did you study?
Well, initially, I guess I had an interesting start because my older sort of mid early teens, so probably around 15 or 16, where I started. One of the schools I ended up moving to for my martial arts training and eventually started teaching classes. for each of our black belt degrees. So I ended up having a third degree black belt there. Each one of them, from the brown, first, second, and third degree black belts, we had to get a stack of books we had to read, and we had to write reports on all those. And the books varied from physiology, psychology, human behavior, some martial arts stuff, kinesiology. So it was quite a range from psychology, the physical and the mental side of things. And then we always got given like a topic we had to write a report on and present that to the other head instructors. That was part of our testing. So if we couldn't do that, we didn't get our grading. It wasn't just a physical side. So even before a profession, I was always studying these things. My initial qualifications were a basic personal training qualification. It was through NSCA back in I guess that might have been mid-90s. Yeah. Eventually got the NASM as well, and the ACE, and not ACE, it was ACSM. So I had those three the big ones of PT, and then I went to school, and the program doesn't exist anymore, but it was a 3-year full-time sports and clinical massage course, or it was essentially like a degree. It was 3 years full-time. So I did that. So my initial ones were massage therapy and personal training, my first qualifications. And during that time, and I got some internships working at University of Washington and a pro soccer team that I ended up actually working for later on, high school as well. I did some hours for the clinical massage stuff. And that led me into learning about athletic medicine. So athletic training certified. So it's called ATC. You may have seen that behind certain Americans' names. And so I got really into that. Initially, I was going to physio school. I was sort of trying to put myself through school for physio, and then I realized that working at a clinic and in sort of that really limited ability to assist people, I felt like it was pretty restrictive. And it wasn't really my thing. I wasn't connecting well with it. And then I learned about athletic training, and so I went and studied the kinesiology, exercise science, and eventually went that route. And so it allowed me to become an ATC. And then went to NSE. I got the CSCS, got the whole, although I don't know if my thing's still current. I think I let it expire a while ago. But anyway, that's another story. So personal training, massage therapy, then the athletic medicine, so the exercise, the kinesiology, and then the CSCS, the strength conditioning qualification. So those are probably the main sort of bigger name, more well-known ones. Yeah. And then obviously we're always studying.
Yeah. Did you know that you wanted to get into that sort of performance side initially? What sort of drew you into, I guess, the strength and conditioning side of things?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. I mean, it was I don't know. I was really connected with it. It always just sort of made sense. I just knew that's what I was going to be doing, and even when I was studying the early parts of my studies, and then even as I was going through everything that was more related to like human movement and performance, both from the mindset side and the physical side, I just saw things differently and more clearly. Like things just sort of clicked. Even in some of the studies, like I graduated honors with everything that I studied when it comes to human movement, and even some of the psychology stuff I did, and I barely studied. It just made sense to me. Yeah. So it might be in part to do with that martial art training, because you become very highly aware of your body and the environment that I was trained in. Like I said, we had to do a lot of study as well. So there was a lot of things. I understood a lot of how things worked, but I didn't know what they were called, because I didn't officially study. Yeah. So I guess it always just spoke to me. And then like early on, I knew that's what I was going to do. And so I just made sure that whatever decisions I made for what I'd study or opportunities I would take for work, whether it was free or paid or otherwise, I just made sure I was always in that environment. I was there. I was in front of those people. I was with those people. I was asking them questions. I was always being seen. I was working my butt off just to get my foot in those different doors. Because as most people in the sport world know that, someone told me back in those 90s was, who gets you there, what keeps you there. Yeah. And so I just I had to figure out who am I supposed to know, and I made sure I got to know them. Yeah. Even if I was annoying the crap out of them, I just made sure I knew them and they knew me. Yeah. And whatever I did, I just did everything I could to do the best I could, and just slowly led into different things, and
And who
got
are
me
those?
Where I am now.
Who are the early sort of influential people that, and you spoke about before, which we'll dig into a little bit later in terms of the martial arts? Was it someone you were looking up to as an instructor that kind of shaped you as someone who sought after more knowledge? And obviously that's been a huge part of your career and the success is how much you've studied, and I guess that area, but also maybe someone in the strength and conditioning field that you looked up to and aspired to be like.
Like from the early days, you mean?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? From the beginning? I mean, I think, interestingly enough, probably most of the people that had the biggest influence on me and I don't know, maybe motivation to do more and to pursue these things were not necessarily in the industry, to be honest. Like obviously there's a lot of people, I'm always studying, right? Like even to this day, I'm just dying. I love that stuff. I'm just learning new things. But I did have the school I was referring to with I had to do all these reports, all that, the head instructor there had a big impact on me for sure, like without a doubt. And a lot of the instructors there probably, they did a lot for me as well. So really, I think they helped influence that hunger that I sort of naturally had. I remember one time, my head, the head instructor told me, like, I'm always asking why. And when the first time he said that, we were talking, I came out, we were doing some sort of, review of whatever, like teacher review or something. And he had mentioned that, like, that was one of my biggest things is that I'm always asking why. I'm always questioning things. And at first when I heard it, I was like pretty young and I thought, oh crap, like I was in trouble. But he said, no, it was actually a good thing. Is I don't do it. I wasn't doing it in sort of a negative sense or questioning as in like, I think I'm better, I know better than you. It was more like I just always naturally seem to want to understand why things are the way they are and why is it this way, and so they helped really allow me, I guess they created an environment that allowed me to develop that further and to realize that I could do more. And, yeah. And then there was a few people outside that some of them I met there actually, funnily enough. And then another person that I started working with at a job, just an older lady. She basically became like one of my moms, basically. And they probably had the biggest influence on me, to be honest, as far as just doing, like going for it, like, finding, it might be hard work, but just doing it, not holding back. Yeah. And, then obviously we had all the old school guys, that were sort of not so old school then, I suppose, still out there, but, that you'd study. But yeah, does that answer your question? I'm getting off track a bit probably, but
no, that makes sense. Yeah, but who were the early guys that you're referring to in terms of the strength coaches that you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have to look at my library here. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Vern was an old school guy. What's that? Vern Gambetta, he was always around. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I mean, back, 20 some odd plus years ago, there wasn't, I don't know. I can't even remember who, to be honest, it's been so long.
Pre-internet, so.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like nowadays, like there's all these big names and like we would just study. Like, I'd go to a library if I wanted to look at stuff. I'd spend the whole day there just like going through the card catalog to find a book and then have to actually go through each book to get that thing that I was looking for. Yeah. Right? And just Google it and like flipping and clicking, and so I always find it difficult to think, early days who influenced me, in the industry, because it was early days too. I was learning, I was learning about rehab, learning about how the body worked, looking, just reading the textbooks essentially. It was really the biggest part. And then just learning from the coaches and trainers that were around me. Yeah. So I guess the people I worked with probably had the biggest influence on me than someone I was reading about. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think even using those constraints, I think probably actually taught you how to be, I guess, more resourceful as for your learning as well. What we spoke about before your martial arts background, could you just talk about what, I guess, that's taught you and how it's, I think just from looking at your social media, it becomes almost a philosophy for your coaching and obviously for your life as well. Could you just speak about that and what I guess martial art means to you? Yeah, so in a sense of how's it influenced me as a coach? As a coach, but also just holistically as a person. I see a lot of the traits and some of the quotes that you put on social media. They're good. They're very, sort of inspiring, and it's not the usual sort of strength and conditioning coaches and quotes that you get. You've got a little bit more of a unique approach to that. I hope you're freezing up there. Sorry. Yeah. No, I hear you definitely. Yes, that's okay. Froze a little bit. Look, no, I agree. I think, for me, I think everyone, especially with children, like all my children, all my young ones, they're all training. They're all doing martial arts. I've seen firsthand from my own personal experience, as well as being a teacher back in the day, and now training alongside other guys and gals, the impact it can have on people's lives, not just from a physical aspect, like you get stronger and fitter, and depending on what you're studying, you might learn how to defend yourself in different environments. But martial arts traditionally, it's about, you look at things in a holistic view. You
like I said, where I learned and studied my sort of old school martial arts, it was more than just, can I beat everyone up in the school? Or can I go to a competition and win a medal? Can I go and do this wrestling match? Can I do, that was part of it, being able to face those kind of environments and perform, be able to do the things that you learn, like in live sort of environments. But that was only part of it. It wasn't the whole thing. I needed, study things on human behavior, understanding, cultures or different cultures, reading, studying about them. It was really more about, I'll give you a good example. Where I study, where my coach is now in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, my head coach, he, when we talk about grading, like for your belts and stripes and all that kind of stuff, he says that they look at 3 areas. One is your technical ability, knowledge and ability. Right? You need to know the stuff, not just can you fight. You actually it's a specific thing. Secondly is, and not in any specific order, but second thing is how well you give and support the team. If there's an activity going on, an event, if someone needs help, are you there, whether you're injured or otherwise, are you there just supporting? Like how involved are you with the team, and how well you compete and or spar. So not everyone wants to go to competitions, but how well they do it live. So it's about not just, can you go fight? Do you understand the art? But it's also like, how are you as a teammate? How are you as a person? And that's in a sport, in more of a sporting environment, not even like in a traditional martial arts where I think it's even more so a big impact on that. So look, for me, I think from day one, since I was very young, it was always about the whole person. Understand who's in front of you. New people come to school. You got to figure out, well, what is it you're trying to get from that? And always looking inside, and also learning how to be objective, I think, is a big key in martial arts. Like how to be able to step back and go, okay, what's actually happening here? What's objectively what's going on? Let's take all my emotion out and let's deal with the situation. Because even when we do live competing or sparring or fighting, a lot of it is about learning how to almost clear your head, not have any thoughts, and just do and act. And so you train that environment on being able to just be clear and calm in a stressful environment. Yeah. Where others are panicking and freaking out, you're sitting back taking a deep breath. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, all right, what's actually happening here? What can I control? And I need to focus on that. Because the rest is going to be a waste of my energy, and it's going to make the other things not work very well. Yeah. So I know I can talk for hours and hours about martial arts, but I do agree. Like, I like what you said. I really appreciate that about like the quotes and the things I talk about aren't really traditional sort of strength conditioning, because I think forever and ever and ever, and until recent years, I felt like everyone else thought the same way, but I'm realizing they don't. They're starting to now, but everyone's so obsessed with the sets and reps and the physiology and the different methods of periodization and congruent this and that, and like they're all this. Everyone talks about the same stuff, and especially nowadays, man, I can just Google anything. I don't need to like go anywhere. I can just sit right here in my room and never leave and still read all about that stuff. But I don't think anyone talks enough yet about understanding the people in front of you, and understand the relationships. And then, like Brett Bartholomew, he's huge the last year or so, right? Mm-hmm. Talk about getting buy-in, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, look, I think martial arts for me, to summarize, is it's had a massive influence on me, because it's from day one. I think I was really, I guess, lucky in that sense, that it was always taught about understanding who's in front of you, looking at everyone as a whole. What are they trying to get out of it? How can you help guide them through that process? Because everyone's going to have a different journey and different resources. So, and then, like I said, being able to stay calm under lots of pressure. Yeah. I think that helps a lot as well. Yeah, confidence.
That's really, really powerful. And I think it's obviously you're original. It's obviously showing that you're bringing those elements into your coaching. How do you bring that into, say, if you're coaching a high performance athlete, whether it's a tennis player or maybe even a fighter as well? How do you bring in the elements? And we spoke about human behavior, and I guess that sense of community, which your martial arts teachers sort of instilled in you. How do you bring that into your coaching prowess, and how you integrate that into teaching them, fundamentals, or getting them to do certain activities?
Yeah, I mean, when you were saying that, I'm thinking, here's one of those big questions. I better try to keep it short. But while you were speaking, the only thing that really popped in my mind first and foremost is that, how do I teach that? How do I get that across? Is I live it, 100%. Like it's who I am. Yeah. I live that way. Like, not just the martial arts I'm saying, but like that mindset of really genuinely being involved and leading by example. When I talk to people about dealing with anxiety and stresses that are either directly involved or outside of their sport or their work environment. That's what I do. Like, I put myself in those environments as well, and I learn how to manage those things, and I'm okay with messing them up and asking for help. Sometimes
Yeah.
we'll have trouble with that one. So I think first and foremost is that I think if I were to ask the athletes I've worked with or spent time with, that have gotten to know me, and even some of the coaches that I work with that I do a lot of coach development stuff, they would say, I would hope that they would say something similar, where it's, I lead by example. I know everyone talks about leading by example, but I try to, sometimes directly, but also indirectly point out, like, look, this is what I'm doing, and talk about the struggles I've had and how I found a solution to them, or how I just don't have an answer. I think that's the biggest thing for me that's helped to get that buy-in, because all the other stuff that you're saying is, I think there's a lot of different ways to apply that. Depends on the person and the scenario, their training age, how involved, how the level of sport they are. It's really tricky. I think a lot of it is just leading by example and really showing a genuine sort of care about that stuff. And look, I think a lot of it depends on if I'm traveling with my tennis players, I've had a handful of them that I've kind of known on the tennis tour, working with people that are a little bit more challenging to work with, because they're high level athletes, elite level, top of their game, individual sports. They got a bit of ego behind them as well, and they're used to being treated a certain way. And we'll go to an airport or go whatever, and the driver is just doing something stupid. It is kind of annoying, but at the same time, their reaction initially, in early days when I'd be working with them, it was just it didn't match. It just wasn't appropriate. Yeah, it was wasting lots of energy. As from the performance aspect, and it was just, I would act a specific way, a little bit more calm and clear and focused, and lead by that, not saying anything, but just acting that way when it mattered most. When something bad happened, I wouldn't freak out. If they got injured on the court or on the field, I don't get panicky or angry or frustrated or whatever. I don't do the "I told you so" things unless it really, sometimes there's a time and place for that. Yeah. So I do it through my actions, my day-to-day, just to show them, look, there's actually another way we can handle this. Let's just take a step back and let's look at what's going on. And then we'll make a plan accordingly. So just try to keep that calm demeanor around them helps. Is that kind of answer your question, or you wanted me to get more specific as far as the training side of it as well?
No, 100%. And I think it builds trust and that word buy-in as well. With athletes, and obviously you've worked at that elite level before, you spoke just before about dealing with people with ego. You said, obviously, leading by example. How would you deal with an athlete that might have the ego a little bit out of control and you're trying to take control of the situation? What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, there's, again, what would I do would really depend on the specific situation. I think, again, and sometimes I'll just tell them, I don't really, and I've said this a lot in different forums, is I don't treat anyone differently because they play a sport really well. I don't treat anyone differently. I treat everyone the same, equally. I don't feel, I don't get excited or I care about what they've achieved or what they do. Obviously I have respect for it, and I have respect more for, and I value more how they act as a person, not what they were able to do on a sporting field. I don't treat my, like I've said before, my mechanic who can fix my car really, really well, an amazing, a wizard mechanic. I don't treat him like a god because he knows how to fix a car better than me. Just like I don't treat the tennis player better because they play tennis better than me, or jiu-jitsu, or whatever the sport is. To me, it doesn't matter. They're just people first, and that shows me who they really are, right? And I've noticed over the decades, I should say, that the people who have that part in check, who they are as a person, the more they have that in check, the better they perform when it matters. The ones that can last longer and get the better result and all those kind of things, they can deal with the pressure better. But the ones with ego, I think they understand from the get-go, I really don't care who they are. And sometimes I'll say, I'll flat out just tell them, I really don't care. This is, you've come to me, you've asked however this happened. I've never gone up to a pro athlete, hey, can I work for you? Can I work with you? I don't, over the years, I don't do that, right? I don't need to. And never have. That'd be a weird thing if anyone did, I suppose. But anyway, and it's so we've come to an arrangement of there's a reason you wanted my help. There's something that I do, the way I do it, that you wanted. And so this is what I'm asking. And obviously I would ask questions why they're having trouble with it, or if it's something to do with what I'm asking them to do, there's an ego, or if it's just outside of that. So a lot of it is probably a couple things. One is setting the table, right? So from day one, it's very clear about what the relationship's going to be like. What are they asking from me and what I need from them, right? So we have that very clear. So anything comes up, it's like, hey, this is what we were working on. If that's not working anymore, that's what are we going to adjust or tweak? But I keep it very clear from day one, so I don't have that problem. The other is just like I said, a lot of the ego type stuff. If it's a day-to-day type issue, it's more kind of not in the training session. It's more outside of that, right? It's more like having those casual conversations over, after a training session. With say like the tennis players or people or athletes I've traveled with, it's over at dinner. It's while we're on the plane, just sitting next to each other, just chatting. It's having these different conversations, and often, depending on the person and the relationship there, it would be more indirect conversations. I would tell a story about some other situation or about a book I was reading that was sort of relevant to kind of what they were up to.
Yeah.
Not saying anything ever like say, hey, you're similar to this. I would never say that, but I would just constantly bring these little things up and how it was handled, or so-and-so was doing this and da-da-da-da. And you can see they were thinking about it, right? Like,
yeah.
And eventually those things kind of pop up a little bit, but but look, I think I guess lastly is like I really believe in what I do, and I never talk about or try to apply anything I don't really believe and trust that I understand how to make it work, how to apply it.
Yeah.
Right. And I make sure I spend a lot of time understanding who's in front of me, so that way I know where they're at, what they need, what they like, what they don't like, how they respond to things as far as physical or emotional. So I'm confident in what I'm saying. I believe works, right? So I think that helps quite a bit. I don't try to just, I saw this cool new thing, or I did this thing on the weekend, I'm going to just throw it in there in the mix just because.
Yeah.
So it gives me that belief in what I'm up to. So I don't know. There's a lot of ego's interesting. Ego's an interesting one, but I think again it's that leading by example, and when any opportunity pops up, I just jump on it to either tell a story, share a story about myself, or just flat out say, hey, look. You know what I mean? You keep complaining. I've had athletes before that were complaining so much how tired they were, or they can't figure out this or that, or they're so like da-da-da-da, or when they're competing, they're really so stressed out, it's affecting their ability to perform. And I just flat out get to a point. It's like, well, look, I'm going to tell you what's happening. The driver getting us back and forth from the course to the hotel, the check-in person at the airport, the security person, this and that, all these little things, in these constant little mini battles throughout the day because of your ego, right? Like you don't like the way they do something. And that is, we only have a certain amount of resources of energy that we have, physical, mental, emotional, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a resource. Everything that we do, think, act, whatever, uses up some of those resources, and we constantly replenishing them.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there wasting so much of it on this just irrelevant crap because of this ego. Yeah. And it's like, you actually want to perform your best? You actually want to be able to get through this? There's no massage or ice bath or breathing or yoga or training method or whatever. None of that is going to do a damn thing for you if you're wasting all this energy on everything else.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to, and then start to point those moments out. And if they have a situation after, we go, hey, look, you know what else could we have done differently? It's almost like teaching them like kids, like, hey, I know you did that. This is what happened. What if we had said this instead of that? Or maybe they're just, look at it from their view. They stopped you to search your bag or to do this. Like, yeah, they know who you are, but it doesn't matter. Like, that's their job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not choosing who they like and don't like on who they do what to. It's their job to do that, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And their job is to keep you and everyone here safer. So if it's like, say, a security person checking bags or anyway. So yeah, does that help?
Yeah,
100%.
That's really good. In terms of we spoke. I mean, you're obviously speaking about connecting with the athletes on a personal level, but also how would you, I guess, read someone's use body language? And I think it's one of those things that you pick up through experience. And I guess it's hard for someone like you or me who've been teaching it or coaching for a while. You do a lot of things on intuition. But if you were giving advice to another coach, obviously body language is a huge thing, and the power of your words and how they can affect outcomes. What would your advice be in that? I know it's a big question, it's a hard one to unpack, but I guess just start from maybe body language and how it's important as a coach.
So are you asking where they could learn how to do that, or How do you mean?
Yeah, how they could learn it, but like what to convey their message as a coach and to use their own body language, but also to read even the athlete's body language.
Yeah, because it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Definitely goes both ways. I think, well, first, like you said, I think it is a massive thing, right? Like, depending on what book you read or what paper you read, it's regardless, the greater percentage of communication has to do with body language and that nonverbal, right? Like most of it's nonverbal, whether it's 50, 60, 100, 90, whatever, I don't care. Depends who you ask. Everyone can agree, though, it's definitely a much larger thing. So I think, firstly, just being aware and understanding that it exists. And I think the easiest thing to control is your own body language first, right? So in being conscious of how you're standing, how you carry yourself. When you're up, the thing is there's a lot of scenarios where like you need to really pay attention to your body language. It's important. Let's say I have an athlete who just lost, or someone who, one of the coaches recently I've had, losing a couple of big clients that was a big part of their business. It's like a big loss, and if I were, when they is telling me this, I need to really be really, really careful about not just the words I say, but more so my body language. Because, people in those situations where they're angry, excited, happy, sad, whatever it is, how extreme or how big it gets is going to be affected by my posture and my body language. If I'm feeding into this like stressful crap that's happening, and I'm like, I'm like freaking out, or I'm hunched over, I'm like, looking this, or like rubbing my head and just like, oh my God, whatever's happening, then they're going to be more so. It's just going to go boom. We're just going to escalate the situation. So I need to be constantly thinking about how am I posturing myself? How am I controlling my body? And I think for me, it's the easiest thing to control is the physical. Yeah. Right. And as we've learned, what we do with our body, how we breathe, our posture will affect how we can think, how we can, see what we see. So I think it has a carryover effect there on being able to handle the situation better. And then the second thing is I'm always, throughout any interaction with my athletes or my clients, my coaches, is not just listening to what they're saying or watching them move. I'm looking at how it's happening, how they're saying what they say, not just what they're saying, right? Like for example, if I work with this coach who works with a lot of youth athletes, and I was, before I even finished the sentence, he was like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about." And that's that you can tell when a kid, and it's the same for the adults, you can tell when they're telling you something because they know that's what you want to hear, or they're telling you what their parents have said, like they're repeating something they've heard, or they're giving you the words that they know you want to hear, or is it coming just from them? Like you can tell the difference. If you actually just pay attention, you know the difference, right? And I think that's most of with learning with body language is just actually paying attention. Right? Yeah, nowadays there's places you can learn about body language and I do this, if I do that, or what, if I do this or that, it means all these different things. Yeah, you can learn about that stuff. Yeah. But first and foremost, man, you need to just pay attention. Just watch. Yeah, I think most people know, like without realizing it. Like I told you the story before. I don't know if I told you, but and go back to the martial arts, we used to teach the kids, and then eventually we realized we need to teach the adults the same thing. Was we would tell them, like, think of it, something that was, recent times for you, or maybe older, where it was a traumatic experience for you, like whether it was a positive or negative, like something really bad happened, like you had a family member pass away, or you lost your job, or something happened that was not good, or you were in a room where you had to go to this meeting and it was just going to be the worst meeting ever, but you had to sit there, or maybe it was a very positive experience. Whatever it was, think of that very, very clear, vivid experience. Now this time I want you to go back and think about, like, how did your body feel, right? How did your gut feel? How did your shoulders, your arms, like, did you feel kind of light and tingly or weird? Did you feel heavy in the shoulders and neck? How are you breathing? How is your, start paying attention to how does your body feel when you're in these different environments? Yeah. Whether it's a good or a bad one. And if you can eventually do that when you're in the moment, like if you're at somewhere having a blast, you're at a party with a friend, whatever it is, on a first date and it's going really well, whatever, right? Yeah. Or you just won some tournament or fight or did something really amazing, stop for a minute and go, like, how does your body feel? Do you feel real light and like, wow, I feel great, and you're standing really tall? Do you feel kind of hunched over, heavy? All these different feelings, right? Clammy palms or not. And just start to then almost like catalog, right? These feelings, that your physical feelings, because your body is going to send off these physical feelings before you're consciously aware of it quite often, right? Yeah. And so that whole, like, learning those gut feelings, So when you're watching something happen, and you might be watching your athlete do something, right? Or you might be in an interaction with a coach, and you're like, something's just not quite right. You're not sure what it is, right? But part of that is learning, like your body's telling you something. You just can't label it yet, maybe. Maybe you haven't learned exactly what it is. But at least having that on your radar to go, okay, something's not quite right, right? Yeah. And now as a coach, I could take that and go, okay, man, I'm not connecting with this person. Or what I'm trying to get them to do, they're not quite getting, right? Or whatever the scenario is, because I'm getting that sense, like something's not quite right. Like they're saying yes and they're doing it, but it's just, they're not buying into it or whatever, right? Whatever you want to call it. And so that's when I have to, like, if I'm aware of that feeling, I go, okay, well, what could it be? And then I can kind of start going through that list of like, okay, well, is my body language is how I conveyed the message? Am I asking them to do something that's really against what they've done in the past? Like I forgot, like, they're from Russia and their upbringing was this way, and now I'm asking them to do that, and their belief system isn't based off that, and it's conflicting, and they trust me, so they're doing it, but it's conflicting, and so they're not really fully there yet. Like whatever it is, I can just sit back and go, okay, let me just peel the layers back and figure out what's missing, what's happening here. Yeah. So go back to the body language thing. Yes, it's important. Like I said, it is a big question. It's hard to keep simple.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, focus on your own body language. How are you presenting the messages? The thing is I don't care how your day is going. When I'm in a session, whether it's I'm coaching, I'm doing a podcast interview, I'm training a client, an athlete, I'm working with a coach, whatever it is, doesn't matter how my day is going. Whatever I'm doing now is all that has to matter. It's all that matters. Like my energy, my enthusiasm.
Just
like,
that presence.
I learned how to manage it. Be present. Like I know people talk about it all the time, but how many people actually consciously work on being able to be present?
Yeah.
Like I would ask the listeners, like, what have you been doing, right? What specific things do you do that allows you to be present every single session, every single moment? Like when you're doing something that you need to be present for.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing right now? What things do you do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, an hourly basis, whatever? Yeah. That actually allows you to be present.
And
there's specific things that I do.
Did you learn specifically that from the martial arts, or is that something that you picked up perhaps later in life through mindfulness practice, or where did you get that from?
I get these kind of questions a lot. I don't really know. Like I honestly believe that we learn a lot of different things from different places, and I think like I probably got that from various sources. Like that woman I spoke about, that was kind of like a mother to me, that really helped get me out of a lot of trouble and really helped change my life. I learned a lot from her, that even now in my mid-40s, I find myself saying things about, man, that's what Charlene used to say to me when I was like 19 years old or whatever. Like, holy crap, like, like, what the hell's going on here? I'll see myself, like kind of like what people do with their parents, I guess. Like, oh man, I heard my dad used to say that. Maybe that's what happens. But I think it's all had an influence on me, right? Yeah. I think the difference is as I've got more experience and older and different, life experiences, I just tend to pay more attention. Yeah. I just try to pay more attention, try to figure out why.
And how would you do that if you had an athlete that you could tell just wasn't, maybe they're a high performer in their sport, but they weren't actually just engaged and present with the training or with the match at hand? How do you attack that as a coach? Is there like drills, or do you recommend, a book, or is it mindfulness or breathing drills? What would you do as a coach? I know it's specific to the individual, but as a general rule of thumb.
I'll give you a few examples. I think everything you suggested, all of the above, right? And then probably more. What do I do? Because I've had that situation, obviously, a number of times. And the thing people understand is that whether you work with, executives or other coaches, high level or beginner, athletes, beginner or elite, they're all just people, right? They all still have these things that affect their ability to perform when they need to. And their motivation and their drive, all that stuff changes all the time. All the time. So there's a number of things. A lot of it, again, goes back to before that situation, is getting to know them as much as you can. Being present, knowing what's going on in their life outside and inside of their sport. So it's always just learning as much as you can about them to help avoid those things from happening, but they still do happen. And then when they do happen, because I've been paying attention, it's easier for me to know which of those methods might work best. Yeah. Now, a number of things I do as a coach. One of the things, whenever I work with new athletes or even existing ones, I'm always recommending and buying and sending them books. Yeah. Hey, read this book. One that I think makes sense to where they need to go next. Or they're having trouble with something I've read. I think, man, when I'm reading this book, anytime I read a book, it's like while I'm reading, I'm thinking of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this,
And
it
so
either reminds me of them or they need to read this.
What was the last
What's
book
that?
you recommended, say, to an athlete?
Well, there's a few that I recommend, a lot of them, which is Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. Yeah, that's a very big one. Like, I know it's been around for a few years now, but I still do. A number of people have recommended the Little Book of Talent by Daniel Coyle, The Little Book of Talent.
Yeah.
It's just quick little tips on talent development. But you can see every time I get them to read it, whether it's a coach or the athlete, they come back like, oh man, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Those are those. I don't know. Quite a bit, actually. It just depends on the person. Like, depends on if they're into reading it, obviously. Some I'll send like a podcast. Like, I'll hear an interview. Like, oh, that's a really cool one. And it'll be those indirect sort of stories where, like, I don't have to say it, but they'll hear it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it depends on the book. But there's a lot of it has to do with more, like, just educating them as much as we can. So, as much as I can. So the other things is, like, is when they're having those situations, is trying to figure out, well, what's the root cause? Yeah? Sometimes you just have off weeks or days. It's fine. Like, sometimes it is what it is, right? It's no big deal. But other times it's there's something more going on. I've had a number of situations where, in practice it's going okay, like nothing really stands out, but it's not, you just kind of middle ground, because that's sometimes what happens. Like, not every session is amazing. Oh my God, that was the best session ever, right? You're just kind of doing your daily tick the boxes sometimes. But then they go to perform and you see just they're not there. Sometimes you can even see it in their body language, like their facial expressions, their eyes, their posturing. It just isn't who they are. Yeah. Again, because I pay attention to how they normally look, I can see how they perform their best. They have a certain presence, right? And it's not quite the same. And so I got to think, okay, and I've seen that so many times. And I tell you, probably the majority of times where that situation occurred had nothing to do with their training, had nothing at all to do with training, nothing to do with their sport, nothing to do with training, nothing to do with the coaches. It had to do with personal relationships, financial decision they had to make, or something, something outside of their working world or their sport that was actually influencing their ability to, when they go to perform, it's another level of stress, another layer or 10 of stress that comes on. And again, if their resources and their mind is being used up by this other thing that's going on, and then we throw on the competition stressors, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? They're not going to be able to perform their best. So it's being able to understand that in their warm-ups. If I'm aware of these situations beforehand, I'm very conscious of how I'm warming them up, the things I'm talking about, the things I'm trying to get them to focus on. And if I can't get them to stop thinking about it, because I've had athletes, no joke, in the middle, out of nowhere, nothing happening, just start bawling, just losing it, and they couldn't stop because there was so much going on outside of in their personal life that environment with everyone watching in this match, like they just broke, they just snapped. Yeah. Right, and it had nothing to do with the sport. Yeah. So it's being able to I think really know what's going on with them, and then planting those seeds or helping them get in their head, and at least in that moment, let's do this so we can perform. Yeah. And sometimes it's a physical thing. Sometimes it's like, here's how to breathe in those situations. Like today, in the match, every time on a changeover before serve or on a halftime or whatever, I'll give them a specific physical thing I want them to do. Yeah. The other thing is how I warm them up. I will change the exercise or movements based on if I need to get a bit more arousal out of them, if I need to get them to settle the hell down because they're a bit too stressed out. So I'll tweak what we do between points on halftime, whatever the sport is, right? Between fights, before the warm up.
And how would you identify that, just in terms of their like specific tests that you'd give, neural tests, or are you doing just reading that through body language, that sort of things, or is it actually something specific?
Sorry, you cut off a little bit right before you said that. I didn't quite get the first part.
Just the question is if with the reading, I guess, the people's, if it's a body language issue or it's verbal, how they're speaking, or are there specific tests that you'd assess someone if they're in that sort of stress state?
Yeah, look, there's definitely things you could do, like nowadays with all the data gathering and, see their heart rate variability and systemic stresses and all that stuff.
That's what I just
but
wanted.
No, I don't use it. No. No. I can do all that, and I used to be the big data freak. Like, oh, your big toe has to be like 13 degrees that way, otherwise the sky's going to fall. And I think don't get me wrong, there's value in collecting data, but I'm a performance coach, and so my goal is they need to perform, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to give them a bunch of information. Someone wants to know knowledge, all that stuff. I need to make sure that on the day it is what matters, right? And sometimes there's things that we just can't measure with our limited sort of ways of measuring things.
Yeah.
I think you need to measure certain things, absolutely. Measure the workload, the stresses that we're putting on them physically, all that kind of stuff, the pressures that they get, from the media, from the sport. But most of it is really, I need to understand who they are. I'd like to know what's going on in their outside world as much as I can. And just knowing my athlete. I need to know, like, does my athlete perform their best? Maybe the day before, the days leading up to the comp, the fight, the match, the tournament, whatever it is, they'll act a certain way.
Yeah.
Like when they go and they perform their best and everything just clicked. When I've had an athlete who's done that, like they've had a really great successes, I stop and go, okay, let me really think about how did that week before go? Those few days leading, how were they acting? What words were they using? What were they talking about? What was the energy like? Because I'll have some athletes that you think, man, it's gonna fall apart when they get there, because the few days or week leading up to it, man, it was bad. It was like, this is crap. Everything we worked for is falling apart. Oh my God, what's gonna happen? And they go, bam, things just go great. Yeah. And I know every time, if I don't get them in a stressful environment and them freaking out about something and things going bad, then they don't perform well. So I need to create that environment to where, like, okay, I need them to feel this, like, right before they go that week leading up. And others is the exact opposite. So it's just knowing who's again, like, I think you need to pay attention. If you have a big team and all that, it's not as easy, but the teams still have a vibe, right? There's still a sense about how the team is, the energy of it. And so I think it's, and there'll be some leaders within that. And there'll be the quiet ones that really, the real leaders that are sort of quiet in the background. And then there's the voicey, big, in your face ones. Yeah. So yeah, I think for me, mostly it's just knowing the person, know what's going on, talk to the coaches, talk to the other people involved on the team to hear what they know about it. And then trying to get all of us to be like, okay, look, we know that, this situation's happening and it's going to affect their performance. Yeah. So what can we do as a team? What words can we avoid? What topics can we talk about? What can we do together without them knowing necessarily that we're doing it, right? To help guide them to where they need to be. So, so it's a team effort there. Anyway,
working with elite athletes, and you've obviously worked with the general population as well. What would you say the commonalities are between, I guess, the top performers, the 1% that actually achieve? Have you sort of identified traits, like when you start working with an athlete, do you look for certain things and think this is a specific talent that I can see is going to work, or this is not going to work? Is there anything you can put your finger on with that?
Oh, look, I think often I listen to the words that, not just the words they're saying, like the kind of things that they say, but also how they say things to me. Yeah. So I think for me, I get the sense from that first conversation and seeing them moving around, not so much just the physical, but how they talk about what they want to do and what's happened in the past. Because I try to ask them things about the good and the bad, things that have worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, what they like and why. Sort of try to peel back a few layers as much as I can, that initial sort of meeting with them. Yeah. And I'm not necessarily looking, like, I listen to the specific answer, obviously, and I make note of that. But I'm really kind of listening to certain words. Like, are they doing a lot of words where they're kind of outwardly pointing, this has happened because of this, and this, or I don't have this because of that, or is it more about, like, look, I've been working on this, and I've done that, and I've tried this, and, this, So I kind of look at, are they really, like, looking at themselves as far as how they're developed and what's worked and not worked, or are they more pointing fingers? Have they hopped around coaches all the time? Are they, just this? So there's not necessarily. I think that's one of the biggest things is the language. I guess if I was going to break it down, is the language that they use. Yeah. I think the top performers I found, the ones that stood out, and even I got to tell you, in the tennis world, years ago when I first started going on the pro tennis tour, like, understand too, I never played tennis, never was a big fan of tennis, never watched it, all that kind of stuff. I just went right into the pro tour, like, right? And there was this young guy who was kind of cocky, but I was watching him work for a while. And, like, we all knew each other hanging out. I think one of my players was probably dating him, or they were doing this. Anyway, another story. Probably shouldn't say that now. Anyway, I'm like, man, and I was telling my guys, I'm like, look, see this guy? Like, there's something about him. I'm telling you, he's going to go well. He's going to do, I had no idea who he was at the time. I mean, I knew him, like, personally, but I didn't know, like, what ranking he was. He wasn't anyone big. He was just, top 100 kind of player, like a good one. He saw him at the Grand Slams. And but there was something about how he would work. I'd watch him work, and his focus, his body language, the questions he'd ask. He was even coming to me, the new guy on the tour, and asking me questions. Like, you can see he was driven, right? He had something about him. I was like, man, he's going to do really well. And that guy happened to be Novak Djokovic, by the way.
Yeah.
And so over the years, what happened with that guy?
Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode. Just a reminder to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now back to the interview.
As I was saying, yeah, definitely. So the language for me is probably a big thing.
Yeah.
A big thing. So yeah. And I think the other part is, no matter the sport, they're understanding that their successes and failures was not just about them. It was actually a team effort.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? Like, so a lot of them understand that, different people play different roles, and it's important for them to get the right people around them.
Yeah.
Right? That's actually a big important, like all the top performers I worked with I've worked with a couple athletes who've become number one in the world, gold, silver medalists in the Olympics. I haven't really told people much about what I do, but I've done a lot of things like this, right?
Yeah.
And as well as taking the people who are down here and I've been in the part of the development till they get there.
Yeah.
And that's those things, their language, making sure they have the right people around them, their environment to them is almost like a non-negotiable. Yeah. Making sure the right environment, like inside and outside of their sport.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's caused conflict in their personal life because people don't understand that to achieve great things, business or sport otherwise, it's not easy for people to connect with you. And sometimes it can be hard on your relationships outside of your work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest things.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few times, and we spoke about Carol Dweck's book before, and how you said language is a powerful thing that you identify, whether, and I think you're alluding to whether they've got that sort of fixed mindset or growth mindset, as Carol says in that book. Is that what you're meaning with language, what you're picking up from what they're saying?
That's part of it, definitely. Actually, there's a couple things. I think another part I didn't mention is also how I like to know their background, their environment, like the coaches that they've worked with. And if I don't know who they are, I like to get to know who they are. Yeah. With these top performers, because I look at, were they raised as, and it does go back to some of this growth versus fixed mindset. Were they raised with, being told how amazing they were because they're special, or is it because they understand that? No, they've been working their butts off. Yeah. Right. And they got the right people, the right work, And so I think, I think in part, definitely talking a lot about that, as well as like different forms of feedback and praise. Yeah. Language, as well as like, they don't use certain words like, I can't do this. Yeah. Or it'd be more like, man, I've been really trying to get this to work and it's just not happening. I'm not sure why. They say, I just can't do that. Yeah. They don't, I hate certain words like the should have, or I should be doing this. I can't do that. I don't know. There's just certain words I don't like to. I hear the word nervous. I don't like. I hate that word. You can just they use or don't use certain words, and I'm like, okay, so someone has helped that develop in them, whether it was natural, that was just who they were, or if it was influenced.
And I guess working the other way, what words would you pick up that you think, oh, hang on, that person, he's in that sort of growth mindset. He's switched on. What are there any words that you look out for the other way?
Yeah. I'll say, probably not too much specific, but it's more about like the type of words. Not always so much the specific word I can think off the top of my head. Yeah. This is the problem with these things. Sometimes you just know it, and then you don't. You have to talk about it. You're like, oh wait, those words. It'll be one of those things later on. Think, oh yeah, these words. Duh. No, it's more of those things that are telling me that they understand that there's a process involved, right? That they need to have, they take ownership of what they're talking about. Things that did or didn't work, they take some ownership in it. They understand that it's where they're at is because, well, they need more of something else. Like they need to be doing something else, or they haven't done something enough yet to get there. So for me, that really, really helps to hear those kind of words, I think. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Rather than a specific word, it's more just you get that sense where they're willing to also accept that, okay, there's not any quick fix. Yeah. Right? And things that we might find that work right now won't always work either. Because different environments change, our focus changes. So this is the ones that really speak, and you could tell they're talking about, like, they understand that performance is a living thing. it's always evolving. It's always kind of changing. There's a few fundamental things that we need to watch out for, like our process, our behaviors, our environment, our language, our body language, these kind of things. But it's always evolving, right?
Yeah.
You know, you might hear someone talk about something that gets you all fired up and motivated, or gets you thinking, man, that was the thing I needed to hear right now. And it got you to take that next step. Big, little step, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then like the person next to you heard the same thing, and they might be in a similar situation as you, but it didn't connect with them because for whatever reason, that's not where they are right now. But then someone else says something similar, but just slightly different, and it connects with that guy, but not me, right? So, you know, different people get, you know, it's an evolving thing. So, yeah, there's not a specific word, definitely not a specific word so much as far as the positive. It's more the idea behind what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That really get me going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've heard you talk before about being resourceful as a coach and as a leader, and how constraints can actually be used for outcomes and to narrow your focus. And I think obviously as coaches and trainers, we're often too focused on latest research and looking for new gadgets and things. Could you just speak about, I guess, the simplicity of being constrained and using the limited resources, and maybe even a story around that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just, the only thing that comes to mind is the word duh. Like, yeah, of course, you know, like, you know, absolutely. Like, I mean, yeah, like, and as you touched on, people, they're always trying to either stay within that little box that they learned, like this is how things are supposed to work, or they're the other extreme where it's like every new fad, every new little thing they want to, you know, use and play and try, or they need those tools to do their work.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, for me, I don't know. I mean, your question, I look at it in both ways. My initial thought is more as a coach, how do I develop better as a coach? Right. What I'm saying is create an environment where I don't have, even if I have available all those tools and all those toys, I'm going to go and train my pro athletes and my developmental athletes and not use any of that stuff. Even though, like, okay, if I have available, why not use it, right? I get that.
Yeah.
But for me to become a better coach, I would put myself in those environments. I'm like, okay, I even to this day, I still take my professional top level, like the high level of their sport players, and we go out to the park and we train.
Yeah.
And I'll just bring a few random bits and pieces or do some body weight stuff on that day, right?
Yeah.
I don't sit in the big high-tech gym with all the bells and whistles. You know, I've done it and I use it, and it's great when you have that stuff. But for me, it's like, okay, how am I going to figure out how to get this person to be better and achieve what they need to achieve, and I don't have all the toys with me? And it also allows them to start being involved in that process and learning how to take care of themselves, where they don't need to have the toys, right? All the tools. Is that what you're talking about, being resourceful? Like,
definitely.
I don't have all the stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think, you know, fundamentals is fundamentals. Like, yes, the fundamentals of strength and conditioning are those big lifts. Absolutely. They're great. They're important. But if I was going to be completely honest, there's only a certain percentage of the elite level athletes that I've worked on a long-term process, and I've seen them develop, and they've gone to the top levels of their sport. And we almost never we don't do much weightlifting, like traditional base weightlifting.
Yeah.
Right? Others, we do a lot of that. It depends. There's a lot of variables to consider.
Yeah.
You know, kind of get off track a little bit there, but, you know, with, like, say, Olympic lifting, people are like, oh, you need to do Olympic lifting to develop power. Yeah, there's lots of evidence to show that's true. But if I have a tennis player who plays 40 weeks a year, 30 plus weeks a year, traveling around the world in different time zones, and they've never been exposed to Olympic lifting, how am I going to teach them where's the risk versus benefit there?
Yeah.
You know, how much time and energy does it take to teach someone how to do that safely and properly to get the benefits that they need?
Yeah.
You don't live in the world we don't live in those world these days. You know, in high performance world or performance coaching world, you don't have that perfect environment that, you know, we have this much time to do this and this much time to do that, and we have this beautifully laid out, you know, plan. You know, life it has to be flexible. So you have to figure out how to make that work. And I mean, to me, being resourceful is that, like I said, I put the constraints on myself first.
Yeah.
You know, I limit myself just so it keeps me thinking, how can I get this same movement done and this thing developed without having, you know, a rack and a bunch of bumper plates, or without having a gym full of equipment? You know, how can I get them stronger if I only have some body weight based stuff? How can I, you know, I'm in the middle of, you know, some town, and we have a hotel gym.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
And I guess that
Right?
comes
So
back to you being resourceful, and you're leading by example, and then I guess your athletes would pick that up from you because you're embodying that as a coach.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I said, like from the start, man. Like for me, it's how do I get them to do things and buy in, whatever, is I do it like myself. First, like your question to me, exactly. How do I help these guys be more resourceful? Like, well, I put the constraints on myself first.
Yeah.
Even if I don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Like, why not do that? Why not put that in yourself, put yourself in a corner and figure out, find where your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Right? We don't all live in a world where we have, things that put us in bad positions, situations. So we haven't been tested that way. All right, well, you need to build some grit and some resiliency, don't you? And some resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Well, put yourself in those positions. It's a safe environment, relatively speaking, right? The world's not going to end if you do this, but it might actually make you a better coach.
Yeah.
Right? And I think your athletes will appreciate that probably as well.
Yeah.
So, and story-wise, I don't know, there's lots of stories. I'm always, especially the tennis players, not having much equipment and they're always on the road, teach them how to make their own gear and how to modify positions of a movement to get, different muscles working in different ways, and, just having to experiment quite a bit. So, anyway, I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, definitely.
There's a lot of other things with that. But,
in terms of getting into, I guess, the nuts and bolts of what you do as a coach as well. When you initially meet with an athlete, what does your initial consultation look like? Is there, obviously we've spoken a lot about mindset and coaching and connecting. Obviously that's a huge part of it, but what are the specifics you actually do?
Yeah. Well, look, it kind of depends on my first session.
Like a specific
I think
screening process, and then would you do even those Myers-Briggs tests or any of the personality stuff as well?
Look, I definitely have used those in the past, and I don't always use them. I think that I've lost you here somewhere. My computer's freaking out. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I've used those kind of things, absolutely. Like I think the personality typing, things like that. I think anyone that's used those for any period of time, just through sitting down, chatting with people, asking a few questions, you can kind of start to gauge where they are on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So how structured do I do my initial consultation? Partly depends on who they are and how I've come to work with them.
Yeah.
If I'll initially for me, I'll tell you, this is one of the easiest things to explain with the elite sort of level or any athlete I work with. Not as much with the coaches, but with the athletes, is I first sit down with them and go, okay, hey, you've contacted me. What do you want to work on? What are you hoping? Get to know them. What's the previous coaches or current coaches? Where are they at in their sport? What's their bigger goals? What are their obstacles currently that they're facing? What is it they're expecting and hoping that I can help them with? Like, why are they talking to me? I want to know, why is it? And if it makes sense to me, I can do that. Sometimes they say, oh, this and that. I'm like, well, I know a guy that might be better with that one because that's definitely not me. Sometimes that happens. Then I like to sit down with the coach or coaches or whoever happens to be sort of the skill side of it, I guess. Or if they have mindset coach or psychologist or nutritionist, anyone that's on their team, I like to have a chat with them as well.
Yeah.
And then what I like to do is have a chat with them together. Because I learn different things. For example, if I have a tennis player, I like to chat with the tennis player, just me and them. I like to talk to the coach, find out what they say, and then I talk to the coach and the player together. And almost every time there's a few things that don't get brought up, right? And individually they do get brought up. So it gives me a sense of their relationship, how they see me working in this, how they sort of talk to each other and what they talk about. And then for me, I think that's a bigger part of it. And then from there, depending on what I'm working on for them, if it's a bigger picture, is it more they're struggling? Like I get this a lot with tennis, especially with tennis players. They travel a lot. And a lot of the younger ones in their 20s and they're kind of, getting that top 100 and they're starting to move up. And right now I'm doing online coaching with a player who's top 50 in the world. He's top 50 in the world, but he's never really had a really clear, structured, supportive strength conditioning coach or fitness or performance coach. I've known him for a long time. We know each other, so he trusts me. So now we're doing this online coaching.
Yeah.
Most of it isn't just the training that we're doing with him, that I'm doing with him, but it's teaching him how to take care of himself. Right? So a lot of my time is spent on well, this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is why we should avoid this now because this is coming up, or why we should do more of this now. So because of my work environment, it's a lot of varied things. So I'll first have conversations with them. After that, I do a bunch of movement testing, movement screening.
Yeah.
There's a handful of movement screens that I like to use.
Yeah.
What I sort of pick out of the toolbox will be, again, depending on who they are and where they're at.
Yeah.
Right?
What are some examples of their specific screens that you use as FMS, FMA?
Yeah. More movement drills.
Okay.
There'll be more like exercises and movement drills that I use. I used to do like, for a while I was an FMS guy, and for a while I was doing, the different, functional screening, like, that I learned, from like athletic medicine. I still use some of those.
Yeah.
So I'll take all my sports medicine and physio screening, and I have that toolbox. And depending on what I find in their overall movement or their history of injury or whatever, I'll pull out certain tests to go, okay, where are they in that, place now? Is there any asymmetry I'm looking for? Any, how's their dorsiflexion? Like, so from a movement screen aspect, I'll do the 3 big rocks that are pretty common nowadays, like your foot, ankle, hip, lumbar, sort of pelvis region, thoracic spine, scapula. Kind of look at those 3 big areas. Yeah. Find out if there's anything that stands out. Anything that kind of makes me go, something's not quite right. I'll dig deeper, do some more special tests. So I have that avenue. And then from a movement perspective, because I think people get too caught up in doing these tests and they miss the bigger picture, right? There's definitely a place for it. Like I said, I use them, study them, I'm very well versed in them. But it won't matter if I fix their dorsiflexion or this or that, but they still move like crap on the field or the court, right? So then I do some movement screens. And some of the things I do, like, to be honest, nowadays, most of them, because again, it goes back to the player needs to understand how to do this and what they mean. So we have like the salsa drill. We have the Russian, we call it. Yeah. I got the foot stomp. We got the ballerina, the karate kid, the dog peeing exercise. So I have all these like funky names that I get my, like a lot of times the athletes will name, they'll kind of come up with a name to help them remember it. So I go, hey, but I'll get them to do these certain drills that like, basically like a salsa drill. Like you ever seen one do salsa? It's just a crossover drill. They're just doing a crossover, right? And I watch how they do it. And then I have them exaggerate. Can they like keep their, their upper body facing one way and their hips and pelvis moving another way and do it efficiently? Okay, that'll tell me, can they separate upper and lower? We do the, I can't remember what they called it. Anyway, there's like some funny looking weird things I'll do that'll also help me kind of see, can they disassociate upper and lower halves, how does the, right to left side connect, all these kind of things. So there's movement drills I'll do that kind of give me a picture of like, okay, where are they at with these things?
Yeah.
And during those movement drills, I won't coach. I'll say, look, I just want you to do this. Do a squat. I'll do an overhead squat. It's a common one. Mm-hmm. With and without heel raise, with no shoes, socks on every time, just to see what happens, right? Mm-hmm. If I do overhead squat and they go, okay, and then I have them raise their heel and they squat really well, like what does that tell me? All right, there's some issue with some dorsiflexion. Great. Don't need to do anything else. Done, right? And I move on, you know what I mean? So I try to keep it fairly simple. But is kind of give you kind of a snapshot?
No, definitely. So, that's really good. And who would you say would have influenced that process? Is there any guys in the industry and that you'd look up to and that you'd recommend their work? Because obviously for you, it's experience. You've been around. You've been doing it for 20 years, and you can see things, and you can use your intuition to go, okay, this is the test I need. But for someone who's maybe an entry level, like at 5 years in, that they might not have that experience, where would you point them in a direction of course as more of a bit of a shotgun approach?
Yeah, look, it would kind of vary. Where I would point someone would vary a bit on the environment in which they are currently working or where they want to go. Yeah. Like, depending on, maybe I get a lot of coaches and trainers and athletes coming to me saying, hey, I want to go here. What would be the next step? Right. So it might vary.
Well, actually, break it down to 2. So break it down to maybe a personal trainer, general population, and then a high performance coach, whether it's tennis or just so we got the 2.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, perfect. So like from a fitness industry world, the great part about these days, there's a lot of resources. Yeah. Right? There's a number of resources. I think from a qualification wise as well as resource, fitness world, I still believe, and it's very basic, like, from who and what I work with, it's fairly entry level, but it's still very, very powerful and it works. It's very efficient, very effective, is the NASM's corrective exercise specialist qualification. So NASM is the National Academy of Sports Medicine, U.S. company. They, they're all founded by a bunch of physios, and they have a corrective exercise specialist course. like a qualification you could do nowadays. And I know it's, people can say what they want. Some online stuff is bad, some is great, some is whatever. But it's an online thing that you do as well as live. But it gives you a foundation of a few basic things that go through various joints and various muscles. And like, okay, do this movement. If this happens, these muscles are typically overactive and these muscles are probably weaker. It gives you like a basic roadmap to follow for various movement dysfunctions, right?
Yeah.
And then gives you examples of what to do about it. Like they follow a process of, you inhibit the overactive stuff, you lengthen the shortened things, you activate those little muscles, and then you integrate the whole at the end in like a big full body sort of compound movement. Yeah. So I think it's a good sort of process to start with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Check Institute has some great stuff. I think you've probably studied. I think you studied quite a bit with Paul Chek's stuff. Yeah. He's got a lot of stuff that is easily accessible, really good with assessing movement, understanding sort of the holistic view of how it all works together. Those are probably from a fitness industry and a corrective exercise side. That's good. FMS is a good. I'm not a. Can you see me okay?
Yeah.
It's getting really dark, isn't it?
It's Sorry.
All good. I can see like a shadow of myself. Sorry. Get off track there. Sorry. So FMS, Gary Gray and Gray Cook, all those guys, like very, very knowledgeable. The FMS, they've created the functional movement screen years ago, which again, it's just 7 simple movements. Tells you a lot of, about how their body's moving. The little thing I would put on these suggestions is when it comes to learning this stuff, I think it's important to know that when you study something, get a qualification, do a course, read a book, is that it's information and it's a tool that you put in your toolbox, right? I don't really prescribe it or subscribe to that thing of I learn the FMS and then I just do FMS as everything. My whole life is about let me improve the FMS, let me improve the screen, right? Let me improve this special test. Yes, maybe there's a time and place for that, but the thing is, whether you're a personal trainer or performance coach, the thing is it's about the end result. How do they feel? Are they moving better? Are they able to do what they need to do? Are they getting result? Right? So the CE, what is it called? The CES from the NASM.
Yeah.
The FMS is an easy one to learn as well, and I think it's easy accessible for international folks. Like they're all over the world now, both of those, and you can do it online as well.
Yeah.
Paul Chek has a lot of online stuff nowadays as well. I think I like them. And then learning just kinesiology. There's a great book called Trail Guide to the Body. It's all about palpating like muscles and where they attach, where they move, what actions they have, just to start to learn the anatomy. The more you know your anatomy and how this works, the better you can start to see things, I think.
Yeah.
To understand the mechanics of it. So that Trail Guide to the Body is a really easy book to sort of follow. It's all very, very well written. I don't know, man. What other books? It depends on who you're working with as well. If you're working with, general pop, but like if they're younger adults, the IYCA, the International Youth Conditioning Association, I should be getting paid for all these plugs I'm doing. What's going on? No, I really like their approach to a lot of stuff, and it's really easy to get from a PT perspective as well as a performance coach. I know there's a whole bunch I'm forgetting probably, so I'm just looking at my bookshelf here to see like if there's anything that stands out.
Yeah.
Mike Boyle has a lot of stuff out that's pretty interesting. He comes and goes with all his stuff. Who knows? I'll leave it at that with PT stuff.
Yeah.
Does that kind of cover as far as like corrective exercise?
No, definitely. That's good. Very helpful. So in terms of mistakes, I think obviously we all learn from mistakes, and obviously you've been doing what you've been doing for a long period of time. Is there any specific things that you think and you look back and you go, why was I doing that? And what could I have done?
Yes, all the time,
obviously you learn from it, but like what did you used to do that you don't do now?
What I used to do that I don't do now? God.
Where did you put too much emphasis and wasted
that's
time?
I like that way. So there's a few things that pop up. One is I can think a few stories that popped in my head when you said about mistakes. I'm like, oh God, I remember that. But one thing I used to do, and it's probably because I initially came from more of a rehab background and working in doctors' offices and medical, hospitals, that I was really, really, and that's the same people you see now, like strength conditioning, where they're way, way over and like, show me the paper on this, show me the research, show me like I need to have this black and white. Everything has to be exactly this way. I was one of those guys. Like I was like, no, man, like this has to be this way, otherwise it doesn't work. Initially, I wasn't extremely like that, like with everyone, but I feel for who I am, it was too much. Like I was really still a little bit like, everything had to be like about corrective exercise, right? I had to fix something all the time rather than like, okay, nowadays I understand that like movement is never perfect, right? When you're performing a physical activity, there's always something different, right? It's never going to be exactly the same every single time, every single rep, and that's okay, right? And probably training people in those environments where, within a safety sort of, fine lines of safety, right, it's probably better for them to be able to control their body in these different, different ways and different methods so they don't get hurt. They're more, resilient or more resistant to injury. So yeah, that'd probably be one of the big things is just being too much about the technical and not enough about letting them play, I guess, let them experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
Although I don't think I was ever really extremely like that compared to some people I've met. But for what I like to be, I think it was a bit too much. Yeah. And look, I think like for mistake, I made many. Like I remember my first, when I first got on the pro tennis tour, and this was and I knew better, but I just went with it, and I just, anyway, I'll tell you. Want me to tell you the story?
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
But just start on the new tennis. It was. I got on the tour. I had couple of guys that were like, one was like 80 in the world or something like that, and the other was like 300 in the world. The two guys I first started working with, and we spent a few weeks initially just working off-site, not traveling, just to see if I liked it, they liked it. It went really well. They said, "Hey, why don't you do a few tournaments because it's a much different environment, traveling and all that. Like, see what you think, and we'll see how we work." I'm like, "Yeah, let's go for it. Why not?" It was one of the first tournaments. I want to say it was maybe the first one, but it was within the first 2 or 3 for sure. So these guys are Russian players, right? And maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but anyway.
Just don't name them.
So they all have this doctor, right? They has all their supplements. And they are just supplements. Just to make it clear, none of my athletes I work with do any of this like fucking doping crap because I don't have nothing to do with it. Like just makes an unfair advantage for a lot of people, but I don't want to deal with any like that, right? So they're just supplements. Some of them were like this Russian stuff, this like stuff from Asia, and then stuff that we all heard of, I had like this elk's bone marrow blood stuff and like all kinds of weird things and some normal things, right? Anyway, it was all in one bottle, or like 2 or 3 bottles, all mixed together, all written in Russian, with drinks mixed, this and that. And I'm like, I don't speak Russian much, let's read it. And they're telling me what to do. Like, so right before the matches, like the coach and the players, like, oh yeah, just mix this with this, but don't mix with that, and like throwing stuff together. And so I'm doing all his pre-match and during match supplementation, like his drinks and what he takes and all that. And I'm throwing it all together, and I'm like, my gut's going, man, I don't know what this stuff is. I don't want to be giving it to anybody. Like, I don't do that unless I know exactly what it is. And I just did it anyway. And it was a moment. It was in a hurry, like, and my athlete he lost. He got destroyed on the court. And, like, within minutes, I feel like it was minutes. It was probably halfway through the match. I don't know. Like, he's sweating like you wouldn't even believe. Like, it's just pouring out of him. And he just doesn't look right. He's telling me he can't see. He's like seeing blurry things, and he's freaking out. Like his body is just going nuts. Because apparently, the things I mix in the drink, you're not supposed to mix together, and he's not supposed to take. And on top of that, I got like the thing that was supposed to have a little bit, I gave a lot to, and the thing I was supposed to get a lot to, I gave a little bit of. Got it all messed up. So he was messed up for a few hours. And I was like, man, I went to him afterward. I was like, look, obviously I'm sorry. Yeah. And I said, look, if we're going to do this, there's one or two things. I need to see this doctor. I don't care who he is or how big he is. I'm face-to-face with him, and he's going to tell me everything about every single pill, every single powder. I want to know every ingredient that's in there, where it's from, why you're taking it, when you're supposed to take it. And until that happens, I'm not giving you a damn thing. And if you want me to work with you, you're not taking any supplements whatsoever. You want a sport drink? I'm going to go buy one down at GNC or somewhere that I know what the hell it is, and I'll give it to you, but otherwise you ain't touching the thing.
And what the hell was it?
My mistake was not listening. It was like stimulant stuff for his drink, and he doesn't do well with stimulants, right?
Okay.
And some had like this high level of magnesium and like just a bunch of stuff, and his body just doesn't react well with it. So we were in Miami or Vegas. Now I'm confused. Anyway, it was very hot where we were, and then he's drinking this stuff which was a stimulant, and his body was just going nuts, heart rate through the roof, and he's like, because I gave him a stimulants he doesn't take much of or at all. He's very, very sensitive to, and I gave him a whole bunch of it in his drink. Yeah. So he just got all kinds of messed up. So yeah. Anyway, so that was a mistake. I was like, man, that was bad. I was just like, oh my God. what just happened?
Very cool.
So I never ever do that again, and never did it before, and I don't know why I did it then, but it was just a mistake not following my own sort of rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got caught in the moment, and anyway.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was an interesting few hours.
Now, just
Anyway.
moving gears a little bit, going on to more of the general philosophies around training and health, just for life, and I guess for yourself, and what sort of practices you would do. But what I guess are your general philosophies around training and movement? And obviously you've got children, and I've seen you post a few videos of them doing exercise in the back garden. Can you just talk about, I guess, the general philosophies around health and movement that you'd teach?
Absolutely. Look, the things about movement for me, it's the same whether I'm working with an elite athlete or someone who's never exercised in their life. Yeah, I think movement is important. Movement, everything about how our body works, even our physiology, it requires movement to work the way it's supposed to work. For me, I think one of the biggest things, and again, this is even on the highest level of sport, there needs to be some level of enjoyment in what you do, in the training, right? If there's no level of enjoyment on any level at all, you're not going to keep doing it. And if you do keep doing it, you're just going to learn to be real spiteful about it. You know what I mean? And it's not going to be a long-term thing for you. So for me, I think it has to be some level of enjoyment. Don't get me wrong. Like, you need to work your ass off, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that, that's a part of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm a really big fan of body weight type work as well. I think if you can't control your body, then what's the point? I think I've seen, and again, that goes back to the martial arts. I think some of the best athletes I've ever worked in had that, were grapplers, were martial artists of some sort. They just had this body awareness like none other, this control of their body that you don't see very often. Like, you'll see elite level athlete within their sport, they move well, but then you take them outside of that context, that environment, and they don't move so well, right? Where I've taken like certain martial arts, especially like grappling type martial arts, where they a lot of controlling balance in their body, and you put them in different environments, and they seem to be able to handle it, and they learn quickly because they have this constant body weight, body control, body awareness environment that they work in, and it carries across everything else. So I think for me, I love doing a lot of body weight work for that sense because it's very challenging. You don't need any equipment. You don't need any much space, right? Like, being resourceful, go back to that.
Yeah.
And I think it builds a relationship with their body, some awareness of what they actually can do. Yep. So I think with movement and health, that's it. Like, as far as other health stuff, I don't really follow a strict diet. Like, you need to eat this in this way at this time. That, there's certain things at certain times with certain people, right? That, we do have certain, because it helps them perform their best or recover well. But I think it's like, I think people label things too much. Like, oh, I have to eat this way, or I need to do this, or I can't have that. And it creates these man-made imaginary obstacle, that they already have enough obstacles. And so they don't follow through with it. It doesn't become a lasting thing. So I think it needs to be part of their lifestyle. It needs to be something they have some enjoyment in. I think if you can find a way to incorporate movement and community is crucial, because that community is what will keep people going and keep exploring and keep doing. So I think a lot of it for me with movement, it's helping people have a different perspective on what movement and health is.
Yeah.
It's not about like just again, there's personalities. Some people want the numbers and the black and white and the structure and the Excel spreadsheet, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But even they need to have some level of, well, why am I doing this? Some enjoyment. So with movement, I think it's more about the perspective of like, find a way to get people to do what they need to do to get some enjoyment out of it, so that way they'll continue to move and hopefully continue to find new avenues of movement. Like my wife, for example, like she's very active, right? So she's always like, she's doing jiu-jitsu now. She's highly claustrophobic, man. She hates it. She hates every minute of it. But she knows for her, that's like the next thing that she wants to learn. Like, she needs to learn that physicality, and also that, well, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if you understand, claustrophobia is like if you have claustrophobia and you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling, that kind of stuff, it's scary because you're constantly being smothered.
Yeah.
And you can't breathe, and you're being squished. And there's someone suddenly like right here, and you're not used to having someone right here you don't know sweating all over you, right?
Yeah.
So for her, like, that was her thing is, she does things that will challenge her, because she's like, well, look, this is an issue I have. This is an area where it's challenging. So she found a safe environment. It's a place where I train, my kids train, all these things. And so for her, it's like, okay, it's scary, but I know the environment's safe. So I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to go. I'm going to try to challenge myself and do this. So, as a coach, I think, create an environment of safety. And again, everything I'm saying, I do with my pro athletes as well.
Yeah.
They need to feel safety, trust. We have fun. I've taken some of the best athletes in the world in their sport, and we play games for some of our warm-ups, and even sometimes the workouts. I'm not saying that's all we do. Don't get me wrong, obviously, right? But we need to have some fun sometimes, man. You can't just take a time out, man. Like, what the hell? Like, you're going to go nuts. You're not robots. You know what I mean? So I think with food and nutrition and all that, so much is about the perspective. Like, don't make it like a thing I have to do or I can't do this. I think those things they put roadblocks up that are just, it's not going to last. It's not going to work for you.
Yeah. That's some great advice.
Is that kind of what you're digging for?
No, very good. In terms of like daily practice and habits yourself, obviously you being a peak performer and someone who's worked at the high level, I'm more interested now in obviously personally what you do to keep yourself performing as a coach, also as a dad and a husband and just as a person as well.
All the above. Yeah, look, there's a lot of things. I don't like to use that word being mindful because it seems to be like a cool word these days. Everyone's using it. But it is, it's often because I have such a young family now as well, when I'm working lots. When I come home, I spend time with them. Like I get home and one of the things I do is I put my phone and computer down and I don't touch it when I first get home if they're awake.
Yeah.
I don't go back to work or do anything on my phone, nothing until everyone's in bed. Yeah, everyone's in bed. Okay, cool. So often I'll start some of my work. It's like 11, 12 o'clock at night before I start. So sometimes I'm not sleeping very much, which isn't probably the best advice health-wise, sorry. But I do go through spurts where that's what I do. And also because I work with a lot of coaches and athletes who travel around the world, I'll be Skyping and things at different times with them. So to be able to manage all of this and still stay happy and healthy and fit, again, well, for me, martial arts, jiu-jitsu is my passion. It's movement. It's high-intensity movement, and it's complex movement. It's always a challenge, always having to learn something. So from a neuroscience perspective, a physical, emotional, it ticks all those boxes that you need to do. It's like, for me, it's like my meditation. It's also a way of keeping really healthy and fit. It's a part of a way of being able to connect with other people and have a good community, because I think you need that connection outside of just there are people who are outside of my circles as well. There's quite a diverse group of people who show up at these places, right? So it takes a lot of boxes for that. The other thing I do, and I kind of hinted to that earlier with, being present, being focused on whatever I'm doing now is all I'm focused on. I don't think about anything else. And I give everything. And I'm having trouble here because I got this little earplug in talking because I'm very animated. I like to be like moving and jumping around. And it just keeps falling on my ear and I can't move. So it's been tricky talking to you right now.
Yeah.
Because I always give a lot of energy to whatever I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean I'm jumping around, but I'm here.
Yeah. And
to do that and do it sometimes in very high performance environments where it's a lot of stress, a lot of giving, right? You're always constantly giving to your coaches and to your athletes and your clients. One thing I do is throughout the day, I take a little between 2 minutes to maybe 10 minutes, just a timeout. I'll give you an example. Like tomorrow, what do I have to do? Tomorrow I have a coaching session online with a coach. Then I have a face-to-face session with a professional dancer, like one of these athletes I work with. And then I'm teaching up in about a 45-minute drive from here. I'm teaching exercise prescription rehab course. And between each one of those tasks, I'm exhausted afterward because I give everything, right? And I'm pretty tired. I just feel like this. Whoa. So I'm going to finish my online thing. I'm going to drive to that session. I'm going to get there a little bit early, and I turn my car off and I just sit there, just quiet. I'm not doing any special meditation or any special technique or any thing that people want to label. I just sit there and I just chill. I just quiet. Try not to think about anything. Just breathe a little bit, maybe whatever. I just chill. That's it. And then after I'm done with that session, I'm going to race up to the school. Before I get out of the car, guess what? I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to stop. So throughout the day, I take these little mini breaks of just quiet. No phone, no noise, no music, no thoughts. Just
how many times a day would you do that? It
could vary. Sometimes I might do it once. Depends on what I'm doing for the day. You know what I mean? If I have a pretty full schedule, yeah, I'll do it 5-6 times a day, maybe more sometimes. I haven't really counted, to be honest. I just do it. Whenever there's a moment I'll just stop.
Yeah.
If there's a moment where I have a bit of a gap, I'll just stop.
And it's
I
always
don't think about anything. I don't
10
rush.
minutes.
Yeah, even if it's 2 minutes, I find it really helps.
Yeah.
Like I don't do it a very long time. It's just these little mini breaks. It's like I feel like sometimes in my mind I'm almost feeling like, okay, I'm like stopping and plugging. We always have to top up our phone these days because the battery's always getting low.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just topping up my charge. Just like, okay, just top it up a little bit. And then I just chill out, and I might just take my time getting there. When I'm there, bam, I just hit the switch and I go.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to rock. Yeah. Doesn't matter what's going on in the outside world. It's just, here I am.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to convey with my athletes. Like, whatever we're doing right now, this is what you need to focus on. It doesn't matter about your wife, your girlfriend, your car, your money, your sponsors, your managers, nobody cares, your parents. It doesn't matter. Like, this is all that matters. This is awesome for you. Like, we're now going to be in a closed bubble. None of that shit matters. Nothing can bother you. Nothing can come to you. This is the moment, And so try to have that distraction for me. So there's a lot of things like that. Like and I just try to spend time with, people that both help me be calm, kind of keep me grounded, I guess. Like just be like, I enjoy their company, as well as people who challenge me and kind of annoy me. To be honest, I like to be around people who not just challenge me, but like kind of irritate and annoy me, just to kind of keep that that sense of being able to manage my emotions really well, my responses to things. So again, I like to put myself in a corner. I guess I was raised that way. I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's probably the biggest advice for me. I think just take time out, man. Just take your time out. Recharge your batteries, so when you're doing what you do, don't get caught up in just ticking the boxes and going through the motions. People sense that stuff. People are going to know. They're going to tell that you're not there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's some powerful advice. And I think you do it through experience and intuition. I think you've just learned yourself what works. And I like the fact that you've come up, I guess, with your own philosophy and method to doing that, because a lot of people rely on, apps or CDs or whatever it is to get in that space. And it's not that that's necessarily wrong, but you've found something that works for you.
Yeah, it's a bonus when you have those resources. Yeah, not always going to have those available. So
yeah, awesome. We're getting to the end of the interview. I've got a couple of rapid fire questions for you that we can get to know you a little bit better. So, sometimes people struggle with giving one answer, but we'll see.
I'll try my best. Sorry.
First one. It's not you. Everyone else does it. What is your all-time favorite? Can be training book, self-help book,
killing me.
Or you can pick from each category, whether it's nutrition, self-help, or training.
Oh, man. Oh, look, God, there's so many, man. I always have. I know people often say this, but picking that one thing, I have trouble with because it's all relative to where I'm at right now. I'll read something, and boom. Recently, I'll give Brett Bartholomew a little bit of a plug again because I think his work is important. So his book, Conscious Coaching, I think is a great new resource.
It's an awesome
and
book.
A good place to start people thinking. Yeah, I think I want more and more people to be thinking that way. Like it needs to happen. Top Dog, it's a great book. I think a lot of people should read Top Dog by Ashley Merriman and Poe Bronson. Teach Like a Champion. Oh, see, I'm giving you too many books again. See that? I didn't get one.
That's okay. I'll let you
I
go.
read a lot of books on education. I'll read a lot of books on education, and so Teach Like a Champion 2.0 is a really great book. So I think teachers have to do this a lot. Think about educators, man. Like with school, like primary school. Like you want to learn how to teach children, man. Some good stuff out there. I don't know, man. Everything, all of it. Look at there's so many books. I don't know. There's a book I have to admit I have not read it through, but at least once every month or two I get someone to message me, says, "Man, you need to read this book," or "Have you read this book?" I've been gifted the book a couple of times now because they've read the book and they said, "Man, it reminds me of you. Like this is you. You should have wrote this book," or "This is you about you." And that's that book by Tim Glover, Relentless. You seen that one?
Yeah, I've read
called
that.
Relentless. Okay, yeah. So I have to read it through though. I start reading it and then I always get distracted. So anyway, there you go. Carol S. Dweck is a good one to start with. Mindset. I can't do it, man. I'm so sorry. Can't do it.
Next one I usually ask is favorite movie, but I'd like probably a different answer for this one. Maybe a movie you recommend to your athletes as more of imparting some knowledge.
Oh man, you're killing me. A movie. There's one I watched recently that I started telling everyone to watch. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Oh man, it's on Netflix. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that
And
narrows
it
it
was
down
just
to
like,
about 500.
yeah, see, about 5 million ones options. Oh, well, there was one called Trainer, but that wasn't the one. Damn it. Oh, it'll come to me.
It's
I can't
it's
remember.
not
There's one. It's on Netflix.
it's not
What?
Peaceful Warrior. That one always gets recommended by strength
Ah,
coaches.
no, no.
Not
I have that book right here, but no, it's all right. No, no, you got to think outside the box a little bit. Ah, I don't remember. I don't
yeah.
have a movie I would recommend people. No, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't really watch a lot of movies. I watch documentaries and stuff.
yeah,
I should Google Netflix while we're talking.
yeah. Or you can email me later, and I'll impose it on the interview later.
Yeah. I just can't remember. It's so weird.
So
Trainer was
next one is: do you have any quotes that you would say on a daily basis, or that encapsulates you and your philosophy?
well, things I say to myself a lot is, or I've heard myself saying a lot is keep going and make it happen. Just make it happen.
Yeah,
People come to me asking me questions. Oh, should I or could I? I just go yes. Like I just say yes, do it. Just go. Yes. That's usually my first response is like, yep, let's do it. Yeah, and then I'll stop and go, okay, let's just like look at how and why,
yeah,
So probably just keep going, man. Like I just keep going, and often I'll just stop throughout the day and just ask myself, why am I doing something? Am I doing what I should be doing? Even though I hate that word should, is what I'm doing now, getting me where I need to be?
yeah,
Is it in line with what I'm about to go do next? But yeah, I don't really have any big quotes. I like a lot of quotes, but to me, and I'll put some like I've made my own quotes, like you see like on my social media,
yeah,
I've tried to come up with some original quotes. But I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of like all the, cliche sort of quotes, and because
yeah,
I think they're kind of cool and they get people excited, but it's just like a very like limited sort of like, oh wow, that's cool, and then that's it.
yeah,
There's no like follow through with it or how to, and
yeah,
steps, what's next kind of thing.
yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
And
sorry
if
to, yeah.
if you could be known for one thing, what would it be?
Oh geez, that's a big one. I mean, there's a few words that pop in my head. I would love if people believed and thought of me as a genuinely a good person who really, I know people say this all the time, but really actually did care about the people around him. That's the main thing, that I made a difference.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, I know it sounds, again, it's kind of cliche-ish and don't really like to say those kind of things, but for me, it's like, I want people to feel that, I was a good man, a good parent, a good father, a good coach,
Yeah,
that, I did what I could with what I had.
yeah,
That's probably the biggest thing, I think, is just, taking what I have and making the most of what I have and helping others learn how to do the same.
yeah,
I guess that just came out of nowhere. That's good. I like that one.
yeah,
I might write that down real quick.
yeah. You should definitely put that on your social media. That one.
Yeah. I can't remember what I just said, but no, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, but I think, just made the most of what my situation in my life and what I have now in the past and being able to help others, learn how to do the same for themselves.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's a big thing.
And what's in store for the next 12 months for you?
Man, this is a pretty crazy year. Putting some challenges to myself. I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. Coaching coaches, being a mentor, being a performance coach on different levels and different environments. But I don't often share all the things that I've done. There's people that know me for a long time that don't know half the or much or at all what I do or what I've done and the things I've been able to do for myself as well as help others achieve. So as part of it is to share more of my experiences and the things that I've sort of learned over the years for myself, share those more publicly.
Yeah.
As well as doing that by various avenues. One is, I started writing a book a while ago and I've been back on it this year. Doing more workshops, but more publicly. Like I run a lot of workshops, like smaller ones in specific groups.
Yeah.
I'll put together and do things for them. But this year will be, in fact, this month, doing more sort of publicly, saying, hey, inviting other coaches that aren't necessarily in a certain group or circle, saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. You guys want to come along? Come check it out. So yeah, I'll be doing a lot of that. So really, for me this year is I'm shifting gears, I suppose. I'm in my mid 40s. I got a young family. not going to be traveling all around the world anymore. I've turned down a few opportunities to do that. I don't want to travel full time anymore. I want to be home, train myself, be with my family. And so it's shifting gears on the business. I've recently started a Facebook group that's really focused on, it's called Mindset Movement Mentorship. And a lot of it is focused not just on these, hey, you need to do this and do that, and all these sort of little sound bites and quotes that get people thinking. I like to get people thinking, but for me, it's more about how do we dig deeper? What's the application of that? People talk about all these things about growth mindset stuff. Okay, people talk about giving praise certain ways. Okay, but how do you do it? And how do you do it? Say you, Adam, in your specific environment, your situation right now, how do you apply that? Let's talk about it. What are some things that I can offer you, or you can offer me, that we can do right now, today?
Yeah.
To act stuff. So for me, I'm sharing a lot more, writing the book, running lots of workshops. Ideally, I want to I'm putting together more online based workshops, webinars, training, just to be able to, because most of the community that I work with, they're international, they're all over the world, so being able to reach out to those guys for me is a challenge I've put to myself for the year.
Yeah.
Is to share these things and get out there and be more focused on developing my business and helping other coaches develop them, not just my athletes. So really my time is split right now. This year is split between two things, maybe third on the side. One is the coach development and mentoring, right? So sharing my experiences and knowledge with them directly to help spread the word. I'm going to maintain training my athletes, some developmental as well as elite level athletes, just to keep my foot, keep doing it, keep developing, and keep, being in the trenches, as they say.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that is teaching, whether it's the workshops, teaching at the various, schools, the universities and stuff that I'm working with. So yeah. And then training for me is competing in jiu-jitsu. So the year before last, I competed a little bit and I did really well for my division. So I'm up a division now. And for me this year is, once this knee gets fixed up, is I want to compete. And I would like to, before I'm 50, hopefully, I want to be able to compete at the World Championships in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's my goal.
Awesome.
So that'll start that process now. I need to even continue to be consistent in training.
Yeah.
So I need to have, like I said, lead by example, right? I may never be a world champion, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to be.
Well,
Might be in the old man's category.
You've said it on the podcast now, so everyone knows it's you have to do it.
Yep. Okay, that's the thing, man. I gotta, why not put myself in those environments,
Yeah.
See what happens, see what it feels like.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there's a few things going on, but most of it is coach development. A lot of coach development is going to be a big focus for me, as well as the continue the athletic development stuff.
Yeah.
So, and in the middle of all that, I need to share it to the public, share it to the world.
Yeah. And where can people get in contact? What's the best place for people? I'm going to put these in the show notes so people can get in contact. But what if someone wanted to get in contact, wanted to be mentored, or wanted to be involved with your online programs? Could you just give us a quick plug of where to contact you?
Yeah, sure. I had a website. I'm just getting taken down. It's getting rebuilt as we speak. But that'll be up in the next few days. It's called thecoachingsweetspot.com is the website. But for now and probably ongoing, the best way is through Facebook. Just find me on Facebook. I have my closed group. Like I said, it's called Mindset Movement Mentorship. I can send you a link, or you know the page.
I'm already
on
in
there.
it, yeah.
So you can pop a link in there, or just through my personal page, whatever. You can just kind of just message me, DM me, or whatever you want to call it these days. That's probably the easiest way. Email is thecoachingsweetspot@gmail.com. So you can email me through that as well. But I think Facebook's probably where Facebook and Instagram, mainly Facebook, is where I'll be putting a lot of what I'm up to. Get a hold of me that way. A lot of people contact me initially that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your generous with your time today, and I've obviously picked up a lot of things, and it's an excuse for me to sit down and catch up and talk about what you've been doing. But for those that don't know, I initially got into personal training probably 16 years ago, and Jason was working at the club for my very first job. So it was it's been a lot of water under the bridge since then. But Jason was probably the first guy I sort of looked up to in the coaching space. So it's been good to get you on and to to speak to you. So thank you again for your time.
Too easy. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.